Welcome, Rise Addis Podcast family. My name is David. I am your host for the season. I'm here with David Chen. He is the CEO and co-founder of Capsule Tech. He has done so much in the tech sector, especially in the health tech sector. And today we're going to have a chance to talk about the work that he does. And we're going to expand also on what it means to be a global entrepreneur navigating these different international contexts. So stay tuned, and we hope you enjoy the episode. Stay tuned. Hello, David.
Hello.
Welcome to the Rise Addis Podcast. It's such an honor to have you here because I knew you were going to be here for a very short amount of time. So I had to grab you while you were in Addis. So I'm really glad you could make it. For our audience members, those that don't know David Chen, he is the CEO and co-founder of Capsule. He's a mentor, he's a speaker. He is a well-rounded, multi-talented man, which you will discover throughout our discussion. And it's such an honor and a huge pleasure to have you here, David.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It's a real honor and pleasure to be here.
So just for our audience members to get to know you, can you just introduce yourself, tell us a bit about, where you come from, what you do, what brings you here?
Awesome. So I'll go back to the very beginning. David Chen, usually at that point people are a bit confused because that's a Chinese family name. So I'd say me as an individual, I can be quite confusing or a bit of a hodgepodge of many different, cultures. So back at the very beginning, born and raised in the UK to a mixed family of many different cultures in one house. Then was a scientist. I was a geneticist that went through all right, awesome. So I'm David Chen, as you mentioned, and that's usually where I start to confuse people because I have a Chinese family name. So I remember back in school going for a teacher when they call out your name, or when I was going to a doctor's appointment or things like that, job interviews, everyone's very confused because they're expecting a Chinese man and then a 6'2" black man walks up. So
yeah, it's like, I think you're at the wrong place, sir.
Yeah,
That's usually
it's happened so many times.
Yeah.
But I was born and raised in London to a very diverse family. I'm one of 10 kids and the middle child, which probably explains a lot of my life decisions. And I was very into the sciences. I became a geneticist at university before realizing that I absolutely hate the lab. And I'm not sure if you've been in a science lab before.
I think we have that in common because I have a background in chemistry, so...
Yeah, then you would completely understand about how soul-destroying that cubicle could be.
Yeah.
So, I then went into sales because I wanted to learn how to communicate with people. And fun story is I met a man in a nightclub when I was cleaning tables who was a couple of years older than me, and he spent $15,000 on champagne, and he told me that he was in sales. So I thought, he's clearly the smart one, not me.
Yeah.
I think he dropped out of school at the age of 16. So that inspired me to go into sales.
He knows something that we don't. So.
Clearly.
Yeah.
So that inspired me to go into sales. And then I did it in a B2B environment, literally just trying to copy what this guy had told me. And then through doing that, got exposed to tech with one of the later companies I worked with. They were Axiom, one of the leading, they were the first legal tech company out there. And after doing that for a while, I realized that it is possible to get big companies to embrace technology. So with me, and my interest was always in healthcare, and I was raised by a very Pan-Africanist father who would always talk about Africa and particularly Ethiopia, funnily enough.
Really?
Yeah, he was obsessed with Ethiopia. So I then just thought, why not? Life is short. My father ended up passing away when I was in university, so that that shifted my perspective very quickly, where I just thought, before I know it, I'm going to die, so might as well have a fun life. So it was in a conversation with my co-founder and my best friend, and this is cutting a very long story very, very short, but he said something that stuck with me, where he said, if we're really as smart as we think we are, we can find a way to make ourselves rich and make the world a better place at the same time. And yeah, that was.
It doesn't have to be social impact or capitalism. It can be placed together. Yeah.
So I was just like, yeah, I am smart, so I should be able to figure out how to get rich and make the world a better place. But I knew I wasn't smart enough to do it on my own, so I teamed up with my friends. And yeah, that's kind of how Capsule got started.
Oh, fantastic. So, as you said, you were in London. You joined with your friends to start Capsule. But one thing we didn't mention is what Capsule does. So Capsule, just in very brief terms, because you can explain it better than I can, but Capsule is a health tech company, which you guys started in London, in the UK, and that you have brought to Africa, namely I meant to say Ethiopia, Rwanda, and Uganda being one of the 9 countries that you have set up your company in. And so how did you guys get the inspiration to work on health tech for Africa?
Yeah. So that's a very big and deep question, but I'll also try and keep it short so I'm not rambling and waffling.
Because my biggest interrogation, I mean, you're of African descent, but like how do you launch the idea of, oh yeah, okay, we're gonna do something in health tech and we're gonna focus on Africa, like, because there are so many opportunities in Europe and the US, like why specifically that?
Yeah, so I'll answer it quickly first before giving the context. So there is a mixture of inspiration and pragmatism that you need to have when you're starting a company. So what thing do you care enough about to suffer for a very long time in order for that reality to exist? That's a very, very key component. And then the second component, which is which opportunities are you uniquely positioned where you would be able to get the resources that you need in order to make the change? So on the former point on why I was inspired on and driven to do something in Africa specifically, there's many small ingredients that kind of added up together. So one, my father being a very Pan-Africanist, he loved the idea of the African Union. He wanted the United States of Africa. That was kind of my upbringing. And then when I was in sales and consulting, working with pharmaceutical companies, I'd constantly hear how Africa is going to be the next big thing, just not today because there's not enough data. So I knew that gap existed. And in the 3-4 years I was working in space, absolutely zero progress was made.
Oh, wow.
Then when I left the space and then came back to it through a conference, I saw that it was still exactly the same space. So 6 years had passed, zero changes were made. So that kind of told me, okay, there is a financial opportunity that is sitting on the other side of getting data. Now, no one's making the effort to get it. Now, this is where a bit of delusion comes in because you're like, well, I'm clearly smart enough to do it. I'm like as talented as I think I am.
And sometimes delusion is good.
Delusion I would not be here without delusion. Like looking back, I'm just like, such an idiot. But you need that little bit of craziness. My co-founders kind of encouraged that in me as well. So that's a good thing as well. Like surrounding yourself with people who say, go for it, you could do it, rather than, what's the risk, what's all of that. So I had like super hype men behind me with a delusional element in my brain anyway. So I just thought.
Shout out to Hanan and Femi.
Yeah,
right.
Hanan and Femi, like now they've learned to kind of keep me in check. So now they're managing my ego, but in the early days they were like, yeah, you could do it.
Everything's possible.
Yeah, and then I was just like crazy enough to do it, and they were crazy enough to go with me. So
thank God.
I'd say that was the piece. But it's a mix of luck and opportunity, really. You need to find, and this is the final point, where you are the right person to get the resources. So growing up in London and kind of going into corporate ladder, going into these companies, I noticed that while I was given opportunities, I wasn't given it at the speed that I believed I was capable of. And it was very frustrating because it felt like I was very, very hamstrung, where looking back, again, this is where the delusion and maybe even arrogance came in. I was promoted every year of my corporate career for 6 years straight.
Okay.
But I always felt like it happened 6 months too late. And I was just
You were already ready to go to the next step.
yeah. And I was just like, why do I need to ask permission to do things? And there were certain situations where I felt like if I looked differently or if I had a different background, I would have been like pushed forward more. And then I noticed that the areas where I got the most opportunities were in the uncomfortable spaces where it's different cultures meeting. And because I'm just like used to interacting with many different cultures, I could get into an environment which is completely different, figure out how these people are interacting and how the social rules of that new environment work, and then find myself integrating very quickly. And credit to the company I was working with before, Axiom, even though I was very junior in the organization, they realized that I had an ability to communicate with a very wide range of people. And then they were like, okay, you can go to these conferences, and they flew me to Hong Kong and to Germany and representing the company, even though I was like very low down in the organization. And people were like, why are you sending this guy? Like, he's still pretty junior. But yeah, I think once I kind of put the pieces together, like, hey, there's an opportunity in Africa that Americans and Europeans, they can't be bothered, and they're not going to do the work, clearly, because they hadn't in 6 years, to build the data that's needed for Africa. It's going to need someone who understands their environment to go into this new environment and get the data to the level and quality that they're used to, and then be that bridge. And I just felt like, okay, I'm uniquely positioned to do that. And then it made everything moving forward easier, because when it came to differentiating ourselves from competition or fundraising or things like that, one of the most important things that they ask you early on in the founder journey is why you specifically, because they're investing in you as a person before they're investing in the business. So being able to say, look, I'm still young, but I've been able to be invited to very senior panels, represent companies and global different fora, and I'll just do that for this business. A few crazy investors would be like, you know what, we'll give you, a bit of money to start off. So yeah, that's a very long answer to the question, but it's a many different aspects come together.
That's fantastic. So you mentioned collecting the data within Africa that was missing. So let's just explain to the audience what that work entails, because I won't lie, it took me a few hours when I was doing my research. It took me a few hours to really understand, okay, this is what Capsule does. So yeah, we mentioned before the camera started rolling, I probably need to simplify it in a lot of our materials. But what we realize is it's very difficult to answer very simple questions about African healthcare. Now, what is the disease burden of this particular disease? What medications are in demand? What is being bought? How much is it being bought for? How profitable is it? Very, very simple questions. All of those need to be answered before you can get large-scale investment. Now, what we realize is there is no one place you can go to in Africa to get this data, but it exists. So what we've done as a business is we found a way of combining data from loads of different sources, from hospitals, insurers, pharmacies, and digital health platforms. And we standardize that data, i.e. make it so there's no personal information in there. There's nothing really that can identify an individual, but it still has the statistical relevance, or it can still tell you what is happening in the market. And then we realize if you combine that from all of those different facilities, now you have the scale to say,
this is what Ethiopia needs, or this is what Nigeria needs, or this is what South Africa needs, and this is what they're spending money on. So if you communicate that to a larger company, then they're like, oh, there's a spot where we can provide this medication, or we can open a hospital to serve this specific disease, and that's how they think about investing. So for us, we know the type of questions that they ask when they're deciding, am I going to build a manufacturing plant, or am I going to register my medicine in this country, or am I going to back this particular health program? And we just realized we can get answers to that by combining data from loads of different places. So we built our software, which is able to connect into all the different health facilities, standardize that data before sharing it with us in its de-identified way. And then we can get all of the information telling you what the trends are. And then that's what we make available to our customers. And that's kind of what our business does. We just combine data, simplify it, and make it available so that if you have simple questions or more in-depth questions, you can get the answers on your fingertips.
That's fantastic because, I mean, I've seen it growing up. It's there's a paper trail somewhere, but nobody knows where it leads or what it pertains to. So some files just get lost in some dusty room. Or even it's that there isn't that consistency in updating the data or the softwares as they exist on the market itself, or even it's just there are no computers, so they just no computers, no receipts, so everything just gets handled like without any proper documentation. So. Yeah, that's a very huge gap that you're completing.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to point out is we saw a lot of this in the early days because the version of Capsule that we have now isn't the first version. So we started off initially building software and hardware that can track physical products because we wanted to track where medicines were going. Then we realized that there's no money in that and super hard to sell. Then we changed to building our own software to turn those papers into people capturing it on a computer. Then we had the issues with the computers, so then we built it so we could do it on mobile phones, etc. But then we ended up finding something pretty interesting where for private sector or for companies, whether they're private clinics or private pharmacies, there is certain data that regardless of their size, they manage very well because that's the ones that decide whether they're making money or not. So their inventory,
yes,
their sales, their receipts or their receivables, all of those things are captured well. So we then shifted our perspective to, rather than trying to force people to move over to a digital system, let's find the people who are just capturing this valuable information anyway, because again, it's not sensitive information per se. And we can get, like once we aggregate it in a large enough quantity, we are then able to answer questions that our clients care about. So I'd say, yeah, there's a lot more data in Africa than people realize. It's just the focus and a lot of the attention has been on public health facilities and government-run facilities or donor-run facilities where their objective isn't to make money because someone else is writing the check.
Yeah.
When you have organizations who are responsible for their own financing, they're usually keeping that data really clean. So we focus on that, and that's why we've been able to scale across Africa. So currently, I know we need to update our website and materials. So we're actually in 14 countries at the moment.
Oh, good, because your website said 9 countries, so 14 countries. Congrats.
Thank you.
So if you could just go quickly through it.
Yeah, so it's South Africa. So I'll go with the original 10, which was South Africa, Zimbabwe, Kenya, Uganda, Rwanda, Ethiopia, Egypt, Ghana, Nigeria, Cote d'Ivoire, and then we've added in Malawi, Zambia, Mozambique, I think Gambia. I don't check it every day, but yeah, we've managed.
It's growing, it's expanding.
And then, yeah, we also got expansion we're doing into Asia at the same time. So we're constantly growing now. So we've got a team all their job is to find new data partners. And across those 14 countries, we have over 17,000 health facilities that we're able to plug into. And that gives visibility into over 75 million health records when you consider the number of people that are caught in that catchment of all the partners that we have. So even when and this is one of the reasons why we've been able to do a lot more at the government level and the intergovernmental level, is because we've proven that it's possible to get large-scale data that is across border in the African context.
Yeah.
And most of the time, once we show people what we've done, their first question is, how on earth have you managed to do it? But
it seems like some kind of magic trick, but
but it goes back down to the very, very fundamentals, which is institutions that are responsible for their own destiny, that need to make money to survive. They're capturing the data that they need in order to survive. And when you combine that data from enough facilities, you can then tell what the market is doing.
Yeah. Because it's a very pragmatic approach, but as an outsider, it's just like, oh my God, this seems like a mountain of information that you have to collect. But you're just adopting a very pragmatic approach, which is fantastic. So just to have a better understanding, is okay. You've collected this data, and you know what's going on in the African healthcare. Now, then what's next? How does Capsule monetize that? How is that data utilized efficiently?
Yeah. So we started off with the goal of serving pharmaceutical companies. That's where I had experience. That's where we knew. We ended up hiring a former executive from Big Pharma. The chairman of our board is the president or former president of Pfizer and other big companies. So we had that pharmaceutical lens, and we knew that pharmaceuticals care about two things. One is selling the medicines that they've already made or making new ones. So that's product sales or clinical trials are the two sort of categories, or market access and clinical trials. So that's the original use case we were solving for. But then what we realized is there's a whole bunch of other people that need the same data, but in slightly different ways for different use cases. So that could be consulting companies that are working on behalf of investment banks or private equity or pharmaceutical companies. Also technology companies, those who are building the latest AI, or university researchers who want to write papers on African healthcare or disease trends or things like that. So we're now servicing a much wider range of customers, but our original focus was the pharmaceuticals. And what we found is interesting, and it actually changed our thinking of the business as a whole, is we can run Capsule with a very different economic model to how data has been treated in the past. So to take a couple of steps back, how was data treated before? I always say that people tended to treat data as a commodity. So treat it like oil. And if you own a commodity, then you want to have it very tightly controlled who has access to it, and you want the price to go as high as possible. That's why you have OPEC for the oil countries. Exactly. They all join up and say, okay, this is how much oil we're going to release. This is how we control the prices. That's what happens with commodities. But if you have a utility, the opposite happens. So a utility like electricity, if it's super expensive, only rich people have a light bulb in the house, like 100 years ago. But if it's super cheap, you have everything from these lights to microphones to refrigerators.
Our recent corridors in Addis.
Yeah, exactly.
Our beautiful corridors in Addis.
Corridors, yeah. All over Addis, you have lights everywhere. Yeah, so it's one of those things where as the price goes down, the consumption goes up. And there's something in economics called the Jevons paradox, which is the more cheap or the more efficient you make something, rather than the amount that is being spent on it go down, the amount goes up. So in the example that I used before of electricity, when it's super expensive and only rich people can have it, they may spend 0.01% of their net worth on electricity. But when you have electricity is super cheap, they could be spending 2%, 5%, 10% of their income, depending on what they're using the energy for.
Exactly.
So that's the economic model that we see behind data. So what we're doing is trying to make data as widely accessible and usable so that researchers, so that universities, consulting companies, pharmaceuticals, all of those different institutions, donors, governments themselves can start using the same data for their own use case. And we believe that that would actually drive the usage and also the revenue up for the business. So yeah, that's our current approach.
Okay. No, that's a very smart approach because not only that, but it makes the research more for example, for researchers or for pharmaceutical companies, it allows them to really work on the reality that's on the ground rather than an imagined reality that they have just made up in their minds. Oh, okay, this country is like that, or
Yeah, funny enough, a couple of years ago, we met with one of the country managers for a major pharmaceutical company. It's like a global brand. I'm not going to out them and name them. But we asked them, okay, what's your approach to launching a product in the market? And he was like, do you want me to be completely honest with you? It's launch and inshallah.
Well, super works.
He's like, we have 5 years and inshallah, if it works, we stay. If not, we close down the office and then probably move somewhere else.
So you're
that is how it was done before.
Yeah, I mean, in that case, it's a game changer because, I mean, so many resources just. So so what the kind of work that you're doing is a game changer. But what I'm curious is, how did you, whether when you started or as you were going along, how did you manage to establish trust, whether it's with the government offices like the ministries of health that have this data, or whether it's within the hospitals? How did you establish trust to tell them, like, yes, hand over your data so that we can, pursue this mission on behalf of Capsule?
Yeah. So similarly, there's two aspects to this. One is the pragmatic side. So you have to de-risk it for anyone you're working with. And this is true regardless of what you're asking for. Whether you're asking for a partnership, whether you're asking for investment, you need to think, how do I de-risk it for that person? So you need to step into their shoes and think, what's the worst case scenario? And for all of our data partners, it's, okay, do we get hit by the government, or do we have some form of penalty or something illegal happen? So we have to be very deliberate in making sure that we as a business de-risk it for them. So for instance, with our data partners, as part of our contractual agreements, not only do we state the terms in which we're acting, so we act as a data processor, they control and they manage their data at all times. It's never used without their permission. It never leaves the country without their permission. We can't access it without their permission. We also are very transparent about the opportunities that we're getting, the customer type, the revenue, what it's going to be used for, all of which is sent to them before they decide whether they're happy to share the data for that use case. We also put contractually that we are liable if anything goes wrong. And and this is both on a technical and legal perspective. So if we get hacked, that's on us.
Data breach. Yeah.
And if we do anything miscellaneous, or even if some of our customers do anything miscellaneous, it comes back to us as well. So from a practical point of view, we legally set it out. So we said, okay, we are personally incentivized to do this very well. And one of the things about data protection laws and rules is that the executives can be personally liable. So if anything goes wrong, it's not like Capsule stuff. It's me that could go to jail.
You, David Chen.
Yeah. So like when you're talking to someone, and you're like, we set it up in a way where if anything goes wrong, it's me, David Chen, that's going to jail. So that gives people a certain degree of comfort because they're like, okay, this guy He's not going to put himself in a position where he's personally going to jail. That's one component. But the second component is the type of person that you present yourself to be. So often I like to ask other founders, because like you mentioned earlier, I do a bit of mentorship, and people always ask, how do I build trust? And I say trust is built by the person who you are and the person that you present yourself to be. And the one thing that no one could take away from you is the work you've already done. So when we started Capsule, we were like, Hanan and I were meeting up every day, working 7 days a week, rain or snow, for about a year and a half. And we were spending our own money to get Capsule off the ground.
Okay.
And like when people can talk to you and they can see that, these guys have been sticking at this for a very, very long time, just to even kind of create that tiny spark that can eventually become a business, that you can't fake that. You can't manipulate or present yourself to be that way unless you've done the work. Exactly. So I always say to people, do the work. And people, like when you're having conversations and they ask you questions, and the way that you're able to answer, and the stories you're able to tell them, and the way you're able to take them step by step for everything that you've done, they're then able to be like, okay, this person isn't going to abandon this idea to go and do something else and start another business in 2-3 months.
Yeah, because that's usually the worry when you're, especially in your situation, when you're trying to establish your company in different countries. It's like, okay, can we really trust him if he's, here, there, just kind of everywhere? So, and
especially when you're dealing with governments and ministries of health, their job is to be as cautious as possible. Like, they're responsible for the lives of their population. They're supposed to be as risk averse as possible.
Exactly.
And I think when you go in with that mindset, like they're there to protect their people, and you need to be like, how do you not only protect their people but add value to them? And you can only really communicate that very well when you've done the work yourself. So, for instance, when we were just starting out in Rwanda, out of our own pocket, we were going hospital by hospital, interviewing people, documenting what the problems were, seeing what they needed, and then building it that way. When we started aggregating data, we went facility to see, okay, how do the finance team work? What data is being captured? Why are they capturing that? And we did that for multiple facilities before we started to build out this product. So every single step of the business, we can talk you through the journey on how we got there. Because it wasn't just an idea. It was through, blood, sweat, and tears. And
you did the groundwork. Yeah. You were a soldier, one soldier on the ground.
And a lot of that work is completely thankless. Like, no one gives you credit for that. No one appreciates that. And I always say, when people always ask the question, when did you found Capsule? I say, well, we founded it in 2020 with COVID. That was a trigger for us to go full time, but we were working on it 7 days a week since 2018. Every single day. So that's something you can't really fake.
Exactly. Because it's also the time that you've compiled research, that you've compiled where the gaps are, what the challenge, what are the challenges, and basically like strategizing how Capsule is gonna be coming up. So you mentioned how the efforts that you undertake to protect patients' data, but on the flip side, how do you vet data clients? So you said there are pharmaceutical companies, consulting companies, researchers, etc. Because the worry is always that when people acquire data, for example, all the different data breaches that have occurred, especially if we focus on healthcare. Remember, the 23andMe company had a huge data breach, which ended their company. So how do you protect how do you vet data clients, especially in making sure that patients' data is not used for malicious intent?
Yeah, that's super important for us, and yeah, for all of the reasons that you said. And one of the things that we have to do to make sure that we are vetting them properly is actually going into what they are going to do with that data. And this is one of the reasons why I prefer working with private sector companies, is because the incentives are pretty clear. Like if you're a pharmaceutical company, like I said, there's two things that they care about: making new products or selling the ones they've already made. And then you just need to be able to be like, okay, what product are you trying to sell? Why do you want to sell it in this market? What do you need to know? And a lot of the back and forth that we have with our clients is actually helping us to figure out what is the minimal amount of data that they need in order to answer the question that they care about. And that is something that we've had to learn how to do over time, because let's say, for instance, you want to, you have the best cancer medicine and you know that cancer is a big issue in this specific place. Then we need to know, okay, what type of cancer is your drug most effective on, and what cities are you planning to release it in, and what competitors are you looking at, or what are your major competitors for this one. So then you can just give that specific piece of data to the client when they're paying for it. I think the ones which are a little bit more cautious, that I'm personally more cautious of, is a lot of the AI use cases, because you just don't know. I don't even think sometimes the researchers themselves know what they're going to do with this, whenever they learn something with AI. But I think for us, focusing on companies where they have a very specific goal, where you either achieved it or not, then you can define what data is necessary in order to achieve that goal. So for pharmaceuticals, you sell product, you register product, you develop new ones. For consulting companies, you help write a report to a client to say, these are the 3 recommendations that we make. For researchers, we want to publish a paper that talks about X or Y or Z.
So you're not necessarily handing over the data, you're creating customized data packages to suit each client's needs, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So a lot of that back and forth is defining what do you need and how can we get it to you. So we haven't had a situation where we're sending wholesale all of our data to any client, and we wouldn't do that anyway. And frankly speaking, I don't think many companies can afford it unless they're like a Google or Facebook. But again, like if I got a call like that, I'd be like, like by the way, like I know a lot of people at those companies are great guys, but if like whenever people ask for everything that you have, it's just like, okay, makes you wonder. All
right. So like once again, kudos for Capsule, because it's hard work, but it's quality work from what we've talked about. Now I want to step in towards your expansion into China, because you have the 14 countries in Africa. And you've won the iTech competition where you were awarded $140,000. Which, congratulations, honestly. And apparently you were the only African country to have won on that competition. So that's fantastic. And that pushed you into expanding into China, potentially the Asian market. So walk me through that. How did that happen?
Okay. So you'll notice I sat forward in this one. Like, I see a lot of opportunity here. So I'll take you back to the beginning. Why China in the first place? As you would see all over Africa, China's been making significant investments into Africa, whether it's through infrastructure, roads, buildings that we've been seeing. More recently with EVs, you see everywhere in Addis now. And you have the Belt and Road Initiative that has been very public. A subset of that is the Health Silk Road, which is specific for healthcare in the key Belt and Road countries. That is something which has already been planned. So there was a big focus on that. Now, like I mentioned earlier, when I mentioned the best people that I found to work with are those with very clear incentives. And China seems to have very aligned incentives with a lot of the goals of the many African countries at the moment. So what do I mean by that? Just for context as to why iTech and what iTech is. So iTech is set up by is like a district within Beijing. It's called Chaoyang. And they are trying to attract innovation into China. And what we saw, and again, this is goes into my background of like being between two worlds and seeing how I could connect them. There are thousands of, just to give you an idea, there's over 3,000 registered pharmaceutical companies in Chaoyang. That's like a 10-mile square.
3,000 within 10 square
10 square miles, yes. Okay. So 3,000 pharmaceuticals. There's also 950 odd, they're called API producers or active pharmaceutical ingredients. So whenever you get a medicine, these are the medicine pieces in them. And that's just in that district. Now, China has a goal of becoming a global provider of medicines around the world. So when I was investigating the value chain, what I noticed is a lot of the time in Africa, we are importing medicines from India.
We are.
And yeah, I think 70% of medicines are being imported from India. So I did a little bit of investigating and I found that a lot of the products can be formulated locally, but effectively what happens is you have a Chinese API producer, ships the APIs to India. India breaks the packages down into smaller batches and then sells those batches to Africa. Without a lot of value add being done for very specific products, particularly things like injectables or things like that. So when you have within Africa, especially what COVID showed was that in times of crisis, every country basically says medicines are mine. Like
to each their own.
Yeah.
Figure it out. Yeah.
So there's been a push from African countries and the African Union to have local production of pharmaceuticals, but you can't go from zero pharmaceuticals to full local production. You know, you need to take the steps there. So what I noticed is, okay, there is a rising tide of local African or African governments wanting to promote local production of medicine. And then you have the Chinese who are producing the actual medicine piece. And then due to recent changes that's happening in China, the API producers are now incentivized to get more global partners or to be higher up the value chain. So I just realized, there is a direct connection that could be made between those who are manufacturing the active ingredient in medicines and those who want to do local production in Africa. So that's what made me curious into going into iTech. Now, the process of being in iTech, that was this whole thing. I think there's over 6,000 companies all across the world that applied, and then we got a third place, which is pretty cool. So it's super competitive, only one from Africa. But I think for us, why that made sense is we were saying, look, there is an opportunity for better trade to be done between your two countries or between the continent and China, because they want to have slight less dependency on foreign imports.
Exactly.
They want to promote local production and you produce the ingredients. And if you're making the APIs, you don't really care who your customer is, whether it's someone in India or if it's someone in Addis. Like
business is business.
Business is business. Yeah. So why don't we connect the two? And that was basically how we positioned the business, and that's how we ended up winning iTech. And I think that's the big opportunity that we saw, because again, a lot of the data that we're collecting, our goal was to attract foreign investment into African healthcare. But if you also have like African investment now willing to go into African healthcare as well, that's more useful. So this is a very, very exciting part that we're in at the moment. And for me, it's just one more step towards sort of self-determination and sovereignty when you can control the medicines that you're producing and being able to handle some of the diseases that are hurting your population
Exactly.
through support of local business and potentially trading with other countries. We spoke about earlier, like the AFCFTA, and where Africa is going in creating a true continental market. That's creating a place where like a company in Addis can then be supplying to one in South Africa or in Rwanda, and one in Rwanda could be supplying to Ethiopia. And
intra-Africa trade, not just for goods, but for medicine and medical supplies.
And medicine is the second most imported thing in Africa behind oil.
It is.
So that's a very, very huge part of every single government's budget that could be handled by supporting local production. So we want to be in that and involved in that and help that happen.
Wow, that's fantastic. And the timing is amazing because now the talk, it's not just, we're not just talking about the Africa free trade area. We're going into protocols and its implementation at different national levels. So, I mean, this is fantastic, but it's also another mountain of work that's that's waiting, I feel.
Yeah, but I think the mindset is shifting, and especially in the current global climate. I think COVID was the trigger point where the niceties of the world, everyone collaborates and holds hands and sings Kumbaya. We all realized that once things really hit the fan, everyone's out for themselves. Like even within Europe, like you had, I think it was Netherlands blocking some COVID vaccines are being shipped to the UK, even though the UK company owned it because it was AstraZeneca. So even within Europe, they were blocking each other from getting medicines and things like that. So it really showed how people are really out for themselves. And I think that was a trigger point for the mindset being different, to be like, okay, are we going to be at the behest of global events or whichever leader comes in the world and says, I want to do things my way? Or are we going to work and then make things more sovereign, more independent? And so I think that reality has really pushed for action. And I think that's the missing piece. So for us who've been like we first started working on this in January 2018. Now we're starting to see these things coming. It's almost been 10 years at this point. It's often a timing thing, but you just need to stay in the game long enough until the tide turns to your favor.
Exactly. Well, I'm imagining myself in your position. I'm like, wow, that must be a million things he's juggling at the same time. So let's talk about that. So you are an entrepreneur, not only in Addis, not only in the UK, you are an entrepreneur in many different countries. So for me, that is very interesting because, I mean, for me, who better than you to speak about what it's like to be an entrepreneur, whether it's in the UK, whether it's in Africa, whether it's in Asia, what are some nuances that have really hit you? How do you, I mean, it seems like a very broad question, but you pick the best way you want to answer it. But so what is it like to live the life of a global entrepreneur?
Yep. So I'd say that's a very broad question, and I love this question because it's really goes into human nature. And one thing that I've learned, and this is something I said to Bethel, my wife, and she's
also my best friend.
Also your best friend. I said everyone can understand a smile, even if you don't speak the same language. And I say that because I said it one time when we were at a restaurant, and she was like, "Oh, you're there by yourself, and it seems very, very comfortable." She always, when I first came to Addis, she was always stressed leaving me on my own because she was like, "You can't speak to anyone; you're just going to be mute." And then she comes in, and then she sees me like doing my own thing and being very comfortable, and she was like, "Oh, how are you able to be okay?" And I said, "Oh, everyone understands a smile," and I said that, and then it really hit me how important that is, where there are certain things that, regardless of culture, people hold true. They care about their families. They care about having a good life for the people they care about. They enjoy like having fun and comfort to a degree, and they enjoy having purpose. Now, how that expresses itself in different cultures might be different, but it's more, okay, how do people achieve those same priorities in the context that they find themselves? And then you also need to say, the way people are doing it in this place is not wrong. It's just different. So you have to enter with a view of, okay, how do I see the world in their way so that they're able to take care of their families, have meaning, have enjoyment, have meaningful relationships? Because those are the things that everyone's trying to do. And then you realize that, they achieve it in slightly different combinations. So let's say through the UK culture, where there's a meme of like, keep calm and carry on.
Keep calm and carry on.
Yeah. So it's the culture is you have duty and you may not like it, but your job is to just, keep calm and carry on. So you find that people really enjoy those. In sort of European culture, it's more about, or in UK culture, it's more about sticking through the hard times to have these moments. And those moments could be summertime, it could be Christmas, it could be a certain barbecue, but you have those moments that you kind of put a flag in your mind of, I've had this moment of connection, this meaning of important value, and then I will suffer the necessary time until the next time I have this. Whereas the culture in, say, let's say Mexico, where it's every day you have to be integrated.
Exactly.
So it's like, I want to see my mother, my brother, my family every day. I want to go to their house, knock the door, and just walk in, and maybe not even knock the door, just open the door.
Just walk in.
Just want to eat. You meet someone in a restaurant and you like them. They're like, "Oh, come have dinner with me and my family." Like, that's a very different approach, but it's still for the same objective of connection, of meaning, or of things like that. So
it goes into the larger community.
Yeah. And let's say in Addis, where community is at the center of everything, I'd say it's much more similar to Mexico than it is to the UK.
Exactly.
Where everyone wants to sit around, wants to eat together, wants to check in on that actual person to make sure they're okay. And that's the way you express meaning and value and connection. And then you have, let's say, in China, where they could be a little bit more cold, but it's the duty that you're showing is the way you're showing love. So, for instance, my grandfather, who's like the classic Chinese man, a little bit on the cold side, but for him, love was, I show up every day, I do what I'm supposed to, you're taken care of. Like, this is like my every waking hour is working so that I can make sure that you're okay. And that's how I show
duty through service, I guess.
Yeah. So it's I'd say once you kind of see that overarching pattern, then whenever you find yourself in a new culture, you just try and say, okay, what's the unique combination of actions that lead to those outcomes? And then once you understand that, you're like, oh, okay, so I need to prioritize connection today versus duty for a long time for a moment of connection in the future. And then, that's kind of how I'd answer that.
Yeah, so basically adapting into that specific pattern that you're introduced to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think this is the most important thing, where no one's doing anything wrong. And this was something I had for cultures, but then I realized it just transcends to people as a whole. Everyone at every moment in time is doing what they believe is best. Whether you agree with it, whether you disagree with it, whether it hurts your feelings, whether it insults you, they genuinely believe what I'm doing right now is the best thing that I could possibly do. And trying to see, okay, what frame of mind do I need to be in so that behavior is the best possible thing I could see? That gives you a level of empathy where you can start navigating much more different crowds.
Okay. That's very deep. And so how does that translate when you're seeking out investments or funding, or when you're seeking out partnerships? Do you feel like you have to obviously you have to be a chameleon, because you can't show up like London David being like, okay, give me this.
I'd say once there's something that is very big in Taoism. So there's a moment in time where I was going through like my spiritual exploration phase before, finding my way back to Christ. But I was reading a lot of the ancient Taoist books, and there's something called Wu Wei, which is like the art of non-action. And effectively, what I have realized is you need to be able to or there's Wu Wei and there's also the way of the Tao, and one of the famous lines is, when you see the Tao, you see it in all things. So it's kind of like when you see the way, you see it in all things. And there's a pattern with humans. So if you embrace the mindset that everyone is trying to do the best possible thing with the information that they have, you go into a meeting and then you want someone to invest in you, you want someone to be a partner, you then have to think, okay, with their background and perspective, what would they need to see so that moving forward with you is the absolute best thing that they could do in that moment? So if you're talking to an investor, it's why you, why now, why this? So why are you the person who's the right person to solve this problem? What has changed in the world to make it that this specific moment is the best time where the risks are lowest and the upside is highest?
Okay.
And why should you spend your money on this opportunity instead of something else? And that's kind of how you need to communicate it to address all of those issues. With partners, it's what's in it for them, how do you manage the risk, what do you get out of it? And then you have to communicate it in that way where they think, oh, I get a lot out of this, very little risk for me, and you also win. Then most people are willing to partner. So it's kind of like really trying to get into the mind of the person who is opposite you, or a health minister, and you say, okay, you wake up in the morning and you think, I've done a good job if I've prevented harm and enabled good. So it's like, okay, how do you prevent harm and enable good in the seat that they're sitting in right now? And I'd say being able to shift perspectives from cultures then allowed me to do that with the individual, to be like, okay, what is their background as a person? What are their objectives? And how can I make whatever I'm trying to communicate the best possible decision that they can do in that moment?
Okay. Wow, I feel like this deserves another episode where we discuss about the philosophy of coming together, collaborating.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, we don't have that much time. So I guess I'm on my concluding questions. So for you as a global entrepreneur who's been exposed to all of these cultures, what would you say, for example, because this is, well, we have to pull it back to the Rise Addis Podcast. And our audience members are young Ethiopian entrepreneurs or soon-to-be entrepreneurs or up-and-coming entrepreneurs. So what would you say to those that have the inspiration, that have the vision to see their company, their startup go from Ethiopia to the international stage? What would you say, David Chen, is the quality that they have to work on, that they have to develop as an entrepreneur?
Yep. So this is very specific advice to the Ethiopian founders. I've mentored a few, and I'd say the one thing that I've noticed is curiosity, a non-judgmental curiosity about other cultures. And this is something I've noticed throughout, where there's the Ethiopian way of doing things, and then there's the foreign way of doing things. And everything that is different is just labeled foreign, and it's in a bucket of its own.
Yeah.
And for those who really want to succeed in multi-environments, in order to work with someone, they need to feel like there's a level of commonality with them. So with you, if you want someone else in another country, they're going to need to see something of themselves in you. And the only way you can do that is approaching that through a non-judgmental, curious way, because people don't mind teaching you about themselves.
Exactly.
They just don't want to feel judged. And I'd
there
say
needs to be a safe space.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'd say if you are curious about, okay, how does your country operate? Why does it operate differently to ours? How are you achieving the same goal that we're trying to achieve with this different approach? And how is it working for you, and what could be improved? Oh, great. This is how we do something similar in Ethiopia, and this is how we do something different, and these are some of the benefits of our way, and this is some of the drawbacks of our way. Once you have that mutual exchange, they then feel like, oh, I understand more about you, and you understand more about me. We have that familiarity, and now we can start working together. And doing that is very, very key, especially when you're trying to communicate to a different audience. And this is something I'd say to all of my mentees, especially when they're trying to raise funds, is like the environment of the person solving a problem is very different from the person who holds the money. Like if they're born and raised in California and they're sitting on $2 million, they will not understand.
Beachside estates. Yeah.
Yeah. They would not understand your problems at all.
Yeah.
But it's like, how do you make yourself feel like, oh, I could go out for a beer with this person. I feel like I could spend time with this person. I feel like there is a personal connection there. And then I feel like this person really cares about their space and understands their space good enough. So I may not understand everything that there is to understand about whatever they're doing, but I trust this person will figure out the answer. And that's the thing that usually gets those very tough international partners on board. And I sit down and laugh about it all the time, where I think, I was born in the suburbs in Wembley in the middle of nowhere. I'm in the UK, and now I'm in a position where I'm talking to governments and trying to focus on multi-country trade and investments and health data at a continent-wide level. And the root of all of that was just being curious enough to ask, why are things working this way? Sharing my point of view while being open to being wrong, and giving people the space where they can feel safe enough to tell me things as they see it. And once you do that a few times, it really becomes like a foundation that you can build on top of.
That's wonderful. I mean, earlier I said you're CEO, co-founder, mentor, speaker. I have to say, profound human as well, because, we've had conversations before, but I have this assumption that, when you're in this tech space, you kind of have to think strategically. You have to make moves. Like, it's almost like playing chess. But it's very refreshing to see that, a lot of your values revolve around, connection, doing good, being a morally upright citizen of the world, if I may say so.
I have to say this is one of the luckiest things, or maybe my superpower. I don't know what to say, but I've had people around me who have enabled me to focus on what I'm best at. And what I'm best at is actually connecting. And then I'd say it's connecting with people and also connecting the dots. And when you have people you trust who would say, you know what, I'll take the product design work or the marketing work or all of the other things, it really enables you to focus on what you're best at. So I'd say if one final piece of advice is if you as a founder are looking to build something very big, very lasting, what you need to be best at is finding a good group of people that you can have around you to enable you to do what you're best at. And when you find good people that you can trust, everything from that point goes a lot easier.
Absolutely. It's like building a well-oiled machine, no?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Quality people, with the right skills, yeah?
Yep.
Fantastic. Well, David, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For giving me this time to have this chat with you on the Rise Addis podcast. I know I took a bit more of your time than we planned, but I'm so grateful for you giving me this time. Hopefully, we'll catch up on a future time.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
So, Rise Addis family, this was our episode with David Chen, CEO and co-founder of Capsule Tech. Make sure to check out their work, and I mean, they can connect with you if they can partner with you, if they can collaborate.
If they have data, if they want data.
If you want data, if you have data, you can reach out to David Chen. So that's what our episode looked like. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Thank you.
Awesome.